Okay, so I'm sure you guys are all accustomed to joining Zoom meetings, but I'll remind us all to keep our microphones muted. And the way we're going to do this today is hold our questions to the end. You can put questions in the chat, but if there's something urgent, something clarifying you want to get, raise your hand or put it in the chat, and we'll try to get Jordan to respond to it. Of course, please be respectful to everybody. We'll let Jordan and Nate speak for 30 minutes or so, and then we'll have full-fledged Q&A and a discussion about this topic. So I want to introduce Jordan Norley, who's been twice a mayor here in West Chester Borough. Jordan was the mayor when West Chester Borough adopted its clean energy goals, the Ready for 100 goals. We thank him for that leadership. And he is currently serving on the returning train service to West Chester committee. And he's going to tell us a little bit about that proposal and how it might be a pilot program that could be expanded to other places in Pennsylvania. So with that, Jordan, take it away.
Thank you so much, Jim. Really appreciate the opportunity to meet here with everybody today. Appreciate everything that you do and continue to do for West Chester and the greater region, and really the Sierra Club and all of your magnificent goals, everything that we need here to make a priority, not only locally but really in this world to continue our way of life. So appreciate everyone's contributions, whatever that might be along the spectrum towards a sustainable future, and appreciate your time here today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. This is me over here, Jordan Norley. And we also have with us Nate Asplund from Pop-Up Metro. Nate, would you take a minute and introduce yourself, please?
Oh, thanks, Jordan. And again, I reiterate Jordan's appreciation of everybody's efforts as we need to take steps to even incremental steps to improve the climate urgency. So I'm Nate Asplund, the president of Pop-Up Metro. We'll give you a little more background on my firm that I represent. My background has mainly been in rail and maritime. I was with BNSF Railway, headed up public-private partnerships. I ran Mexico for a number of years to improve the infrastructure in that country. I ran a railway up in North Dakota. And then I was the CEO of the Florida East Coast Railway, which hosts Brightline, prior to joining RDC. So again, thank you for the opportunity to participate with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Nate. And just a little bit more background on me. And these days I'm just kind of like an advocate for various projects. I'm not a current elected official. However, I was first elected to Borough Council and for West Chester Borough, which is, West Chester Borough is the seat of Chester County. We're about 20,000 people. We're compact. We're 1.8 square miles with 20,000 people. With West Chester University, like I said, we're the county seat, so we're the seat of government, justice, all those sorts of things. So I was first elected to Borough Council and started serving in 2012. I was president of council in 2014. And then I had 2 terms of interim mayor in 2017 and 2021, kind of working through these sorts of things all along the way. When I got out of government, on a couple committees, and that's what brings me here today to talk about West Chester Metro and really what this could be for you and your community. This story is not unique. This story is one that can be told anywhere, and one that, frankly, we need to be having, and one we can't wait for the public bureaucracies that hold us up while the world burns. So this is something we need to do now. This is something we need to implement now. And if there are obstacles along the way, we need to solve them or go over them or go around them. and start to in real life right now implement solutions for us to have a sustainable future, or we will not. We do believe this project is shovel ready and can pave the way or lay the tracks for any of these sorts of services, even in your communities that may have a similar sort of groundwork. With that, I'm going to push it back over to Nate to talk about rail transit project development in the U.S. Nate?
Thanks, Jordan. So rail transit development in the US is quite complex, incredibly time consuming, and very, very expensive. This reality is the reason for us to invent, develop, and now be ready to commercialize pop-up metro that Jordan will talk about in a bit. You know, a typical project requires at least a decade to get through all the process steps. The costs are out of sight. Up in Boston, they extended the Green Line 4 miles. It took them 14 years from the inception to when they opened it last December. And the cost was $485 million a mile. SEPTA also wanted to do an extension. You probably know about the King of Prussia line. They spent years doing feasibility, pre-engineering studies. They spent more than $50 million just in feasibility and engineering. Its cost grew to $775 million a mile to construct it. The FTA, or Federal Transit Administration, in March reluctantly rescinded the federal funding because they felt it was unaffordable. And you got nothing. So what we want to do with our partners, with our stakeholders, with our communities, is offer up a third way, another way of getting zero emission public rail transportation in communities. We can do it in a matter of months, not decades, and we can do it for a fraction of these numbers I noted above. We can expedite zero emission transportation adoption. Jordan will talk about the kit. We lease it. We don't ask a community to spend tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. We lease it for them to try it out. The key is we utilize existing rail rights of way while incorporating best-in-class safety. It allows a community to measure its ridership of its citizens, not to estimate it, not to do an algorithm, cross your fingers and hope that hundreds of millions of dollars required, if you can fund that, is going to work and going to deliver the value to the communities that you want. We are nimble, we're lower cost, and we open up a whole new market to medium-sized, smaller communities. The expansion of the exurbs in our country today, healthcare centers, transit-oriented development, and through communities that can't afford hundreds of millions of dollars that need relief right now. So this is the setup of the whole discussion. We frankly have been frustrated, as have communities, of the challenge and all of the complexity to get relief in place now. And we're confident we've come up with a new way of doing it, again, in a matter of months, not decades.
Yeah, thank you, Nate. And this, so SEPTA is our regional authority, so Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority. This was kind of their pet project, the King of Prussia line. And the FTA and appropriate federal authorities said that they're not going to fund that because they didn't, partially for the reason that they didn't believe SEPTA could do this project at budget at $775 million. And if you look at the past performance of SEPTA as it relates to the estimated budget and the overrun of what these things actually ended up costing, you know, it's typically lots of times double or triple the amount of money and time that it takes to do these projects as initially anticipated. So they didn't believe SEPTA could do this for $750,000 a mile. I don't know about you, but I believe in a world of limited resources and practicality. I also believe that the federal funding put forth in infrastructure acts and various acts put forth by the Biden administration in the last few years is specifically developed for this sort of project. What we're talking about is using the minimum amount of resources in order to solve a public problem privately, right? With a Pennsylvania company that puts Pennsylvanians to work, where we're incentivizing the public side of things, public businesses. I'm sorry, private businesses, the private side of things, to solve our public issues and solve them now, nimbly, quickly. So to provide some background as it relates to the West Chester project, because if you're in your community, this could be a good roadmap to really start to kind of develop how you would start to move forward. So West Chester, we're proposing this metro transit service between West Chester and Wawa. Wawa is actually a city. It's not just where you pull in and grab some gas and some good food. So it's on Route 1 Baltimore Pike. And that was recently extended from Elwyn. It opened up this last year, and that was like a 3-mile extension there. That took about 30 years and way more than it was supposed to. So what the West Chester Metro is planning on doing is creating a shuttle service, a rail shuttle service. So I think people hear shuttle and they think it's like a van or something. When we say shuttle service, we're talking about a metro, train that is going from A to Z and shuttling those folks to the rest of the service that goes into the city. But this would connect our communities to Philadelphia and the General Railroad system. A little background: the right-of-way is currently owned by SEPTA, and they suspended service in 1986. So it's been a while since we've had service. There's what we did about 25 years ago as a borough, the borough of West Chester, is we leased this line. We subleased this line. SEPTA leased it to the borough, and the borough subleased it to a tourist train operation so that it wouldn't get overgrown and all those sorts of things, so that right of way would continue to be open. It was a good win-win sort of scenario here. This is West Chester right up here in the northwest. West Chester University would be a stop here that doesn't currently exist. Westtown would be a stop down here that doesn't currently exist. And the first historic Black college and university, Cheney University, would be a stop. And then it goes all the way down to Glen Mills here, and then it would actually go further than this, all the way down to Wawa, and this would be where our metro shuttle service people would get off and hop on the other train. We'll talk about that in a second. As it relates to Cheney University, believe it or not, SEPTA is in the process of eliminating the only public transportation, the only regularly scheduled bus service, publicly transportation to the first historic Black college and university. That could be a major issue for struggling university as it is. In fact, back in 1987, in 1986, when rail service was suspended, by 1987, 1 year later, enrollment dropped 30%. Okay. So a little bit more background here. We've had a tremendous amount of growth since 1986. We've had about 70% population growth in the suburbs and surrounding West Chester University. Millennials are rediscovering the appeals of borough life. There's a lot of people these days, new generations, seniors, you name it, that don't really want a vehicle and frankly wouldn't have a vehicle if when I say vehicle, a car, if they had options where they didn't really need one, and this sort of service to West Chester, for example, would close that loop where people would no longer, if they lived in the borough or near some of these other stations, they wouldn't necessarily need a car anymore, which obviously would have great benefits. Enrollment at West Chester University is way up. Cheney's, unfortunately, is way down. They're struggling to stay alive here. However, the president of that university is certainly big support of this project. Traffic congestion has skyrocketed, more and more investment in highways. So back in 2014, as soon as I became president of Borough Council, we created this committee to reestablish rail service to West Chester. Incredible group of folks came together and started working. In 2015, we had our own feasibility study that kind of caught everyone's attention. We were ultimately able to get PennDOT to pay for an actual feasibility study in 2018. That feasibility came back and said the ridership absolutely supports restoration of rail service to West Chester, and it's a great value in the 5-county area. However, there's no money because of their estimates on how much this would cost to get done. I'll talk about that in a second. 2020, we were able to get PennDOT added West Chester to the state rail plan. And in June 2021, the Metro shuttle concept really emerged, and we started to talk more and partner with Railroad Development Corp and Nate's Papa Metro. And then we were able to get an economic and equity study that again supports our project. And then SEPTA said that they're busy and they don't really want to. Let me, and I quote, this is from SEPTA to us. This will require a substantial level of effort of SEPTA's part to ensure our concerns are adequately addressed. This concept does not align with SEPTA's priorities, and SEPTA does not have the time or resources dedicated to our community. So, just to say one thing about that real quick. If you have an authority, like we have an authority, that refuses to put effort or address the concerns of your community, that authority will take the matters into our own hands and create our own solutions. And that's what this is about. If an authority is fine to take over all of our taxpayer money and transfer it to a different county, instead of in some sort of way providing some equality and some equity and distribution of resources, then that authority is no longer an authority in our community. We made that clear when we passed our Community Bill of Rights and our Home Rule Charter in the Borough of West Chester. So we'll create our own if that's the direction that it's going, and it appears that it is. And this is a project we will get done. West Chester Metro, this is the West Chester Borough station. There'll be another stop at West Chester University, a stop at Westtown, stop at Cheney University, and then a stop at Wawa ultimately. So we'll have this Metro shuttle between West Chester and Wawa, and then the Metro connects with SEPTA trains and buses at Wawa there. And then the Metro connects with SEPTA buses at West Chester, and then Metro makes those 3 intermediate stops like I mentioned. We have an existing railroad tourist train operation, and we'll continue to have that tourist train operation. and we'll operate under federal safety regulations that allow us to do that, called temporal separation. And these are things that we can continue to do. Temporal separation, from the easiest, kind of simplest form, is just making sure there's only one operator on the tracks at one time, and then you lock out the other ones during their scheduled time. And there's certain ways to do that. So we come in here. This is the full SEPTA service here, across the top, coming in from SEPTA Media to Wawa trains coming in here. That's FRA jurisdiction. And then you can see our shuttle here, West Chester Metro, coming in over here. There's a Bailey Bridge that comes across Route 1 about 70 feet. And then you walk over here and you board the other train. All of the schedules are lined up, and there's about a 5-minute exchange in between. This is a short walk, call it a 2-minute walk. All ADA accessible, all of the above. Back in 2011, DVRPC, Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, said that there would be about 1,350 riders for shuttle service. So full through service versus a shuttle service, we still have 70% of the ridership, which represents that 1,350 riders. And these are, the vast majority of these riders are new riders, new ridership. It's not coming from Exton or some other station. It's not cannibalizing some other SEPTA service. This is new people, newly utilizing public transportation, the vast majority of which. Rail service in this area would boost property values by about 145 million. Rail service combats sprawl, focusing density at stations, which is consistent with most regional planning, where you want to concentrate, including our Chester County landscapes, is the Chester County comprehensive plan. Really, most regional planning, you want to concentrate your population growth around existing urban centers, versus encouraging sprawl. And this is the very type of investment and infrastructure that will help to achieve those goals. From an equity standpoint, we come with a very mixed, diverse, both equity and racially diverse communities. We have a very mixed history that's really not pretty. This sort of service, from an equity standpoint, would be incredible, and something to think about in your communities, because the economic mobility that somebody would achieve to have access to Philadelphia, and vice versa for employers, without having to have a car, for example, or take a bus that would take 200 to 300% longer than the proposed service, can really help people that need the help the most. From that standpoint, it's a huge elevation and opportunity. That's not a priority. Sorry. So moving on from there, the conclusion of the feasibility study says West Chester Rail is feasible, but the cost would be $380 million for one track, where you just bump out with another track going another way, or $644 million for two tracks, both sides, which obviously far exceeds available funding. SEPTA perpetually is underfunded with its goals and its backlog on repair projects. Keeping current operations operational. So, priority to state of good repair, and no funding for expansion projects, except King of Prussia. They wanted to spend $750 million a mile there. So to pass it over to Nate here to go through Railroad Development Corp and a little bit more about these trains themselves. We'll do that, and then we'll bring it all together here at the end. Go ahead, Nate.
Thanks, Jordan. So Railroad Development Corp, or RDC, is owned by the Posner family in Pittsburgh. We are a railway investment and management company. We seek to be the partner of choice in railways and rail-related businesses. The foundation of everything we do is safety. One of our railways, you see it on the top right, the Iowa Interstate Railway that runs from Chicago to Omaha. We are benchmarked by Delta Airlines as best in safety. With that, you bestow quality. With safety and quality, you get growth, and that leads to profitability to reinvest in the businesses. And our goal is to be the most respected in our markets. The placards on the box, a few of our holdings, we operate passenger services in Europe. We are the largest private owner of night train equipment in Europe. We operate for the Swedish Railway, Swiss Railway, Austrian Railway, move over 1 million people a year in Germany. We seek to, when you see Eurorail and RegioRail, we seek to take some of the North American acumen of freight and bring it to Europe. Those are freight rail operations primarily in France, Belgium, Italy. Autorized Zilt is the connection to the islands in the Channel in the north of Germany. We are a initial investor in RailPulse, which is a telemetry firm that provides the ability for you to trace rail cars just like your Amazon package. And we're one of the primary initial investors in that. And then, of course, Pop-Up Metro. So in a big picture, we try to take lessons learned and success in projects of freight from North America, take it overseas, and then take our experience of passenger services and try to bring it to North America. The rolling stock, this is all battery propelled. We spent many years developing the prototypes, the first units, the control systems, the battery rafts. We have 2 sets of this equipment already in Pennsylvania under test service. You can come see it, and under proper adult supervision, you can even operate it. It's located in Orbosonia, which is the home of the East Broad Top Railroad. It's cutting edge, rapid charging batteries, zero emission, and I highlighted it. We use lithium iron phosphate as the chemistry in our batteries. It's the safest lithium ion compound for transportation, and it's manufactured in the States. Our chemistry and our control systems do not have the thermal breakaways and flare-ups that you see on YouTube videos. It's a very, very safe technology that we wanted because safety is number one. And we've got a lot of room to put our rafts under our cars that are segregated with fire protection. So we don't have to have the highest performing, most dense energy per unit of battery. We can get away with the safest one. And our battery designs have been deployed for more than 10 years. They're used in forklifts that run inside Amazon warehouses where safety and fire prevention is most important. And that's why we chose it. Our trains can do a top speed of 60 miles per hour. And with our recent updating, we can go 150 miles between charges as our maximum range. For this service, we would top off the battery charge during off-peak periods at West Chester. Flexible interiors, the units that we started with formerly operate on the District Line near London, surface cars for the London Underground. We completely gutted them out, took them down to the studs, rebuilt the interiors with enhanced safety cages at each end of the car. They're dual operated, so the front of the two-car set has an operator stand and the other end as well, so you don't have to turn the sets around between directions. ADA compliant, really nice interiors, brand new HVAC systems, Wi-Fi, places for bicycles, strollers, and luggage. So I think I mentioned this, but what we've chosen to do is we've put all the capital into this, and once you spend the money, you can't get it back. So rather than burdening a community with all that cost, what we do is we rent it, we lease it, and it's leased into a kit. The kit includes the battery trains. It includes rapid charging infrastructure. It includes modular platforms that are fabricated of aluminum that are ADA compliant that we put up along the right-of-way. So you don't need to build stations under the initial years of the service. We provide all the technical support. Reduces the upfront commitment, upfront capital for our sponsors, and it gets flexibility and fast deployment that I talked about in the earlier slide does not exist in the US today. In terms of electricity, we would use renewable energy sourcing. Under phase one, we can choose our energy generation supplier, and we would source renewable energy as the source of it through PECO or PPL, and then we can validate that the energy generation is matched in renewables. That's the first phase. Under a future phase, we'd be very open of working with any local solar wind production project with an offtake agreement. And our total monthly consumption is about 50,000 kilowatts. So that's quite a bit of power that we could commit to get one of those projects there in Delaware or in Chester County off the ground. I will let you go with this one, Jordan.
Okay, thanks, Nate. Yeah, so I was mentioning the extension between Media, Elwyn, and Wawa. That took 34 years and $197 million for those 3 miles, 65.7 million per mile. You know, these excessive design standards for rural, you know, single track, you know, West Chester branch and other things, other tracks all around the state, you know, simply just not correct and not sustainable. We can't afford to dig to the core of the earth and then build the Taj Mahal in order to move people. It's just not the reality of things, nor is it necessary. A simpler, more affordable approach is needed to restore rail service to West Chester and a lot of communities in Pennsylvania and throughout the country. This is a little bit busy, Nate, but do you want to take this quickly?
Sure, I'll go quickly. So you see the conventional approach I spoke about earlier on the left, and then our approach. New starts under FTA require a 30-year commitment for finances. We will lease it for a 2 to 5 year starting demo period. As Jordan mentioned, heavily engineered 110-mile-an-hour type of equipment. Ours is lightweight and goes 60 miles an hour as top. We designed to light rail standards. We take the existing rail line and apply corrective maintenance to bring it up to a class of track to hold schedule and ensure absolute safety standards and performance. You have to build a new station, new platforms, purchase new rolling stock. We lease all of that. Most of the traction systems, if there's catenary, you can have electricity. The other sides are DMUs or diesel multiple units. There is some alternatives being looked at with hydrogen, but that also is very expensive and very much in its infancy. There's a project in California from San Bernardino to the Redlands of a single train set. They're going to do a pilot on it of hydrogen fuel cell, $290 million budget. So early on, and I've worked a lot in hydrogen in my career. It has promise, but it has a lot of challenges given its flammability and difficult to handle. Traditionally, you build huge parking garages like a Wawa. We've got a concept to do green permeable surface grass lots to get it going. The traditional way might be for a incumbent regional operator to do everything itself. We will contract best practice, qualified experts in the business to help us with this. Traditionally, a public sponsor would be the entity to lift it, where, as Jordan mentioned, given the fact that SEPTA can't afford any time to spend to even engage with us, we would go with a 501c nonprofit multi-community public sponsor.
Thank you. Kind of mentioned temporal separation. Won't get into it too much, except for, this was, initially one of the roadblocks that was thrown up from folks. They really try to throw up any roadblocks they can, regardless of the merits. In temporal separation, I mean, it's a known concept. This is not novel. It functions all over the country in several places, including across the river. 6 minutes from SEPTA's headquarters is an example of temporal separation, where you have lightweight European train sets, which this is an actual picture of it. This is called the River Line, across the river there. Lightweight European train sets safely sharing tracks with, large freight trains and other operations. So temporal separation, it works, regardless of what some folks might say. I mentioned it's already been approved by the FRA, the Federal Railroad Administration, in over a dozen locations all over the place. So really a non-issue if you have a partner that is acting with you in goodwill. This has all been solved for, needless to say. We also have a quarry. This kind of just shows you, what those temporal separation, would look like functionally in our specific scenario. Where you just lock in and lock out various operators at various times of the day and the week, in order to make sure you don't have a situation where you have two operations going on at one time. Again, not a problem. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this one either. But this is, if you're coming in from the west to the east, here is the shuttle, and then there's a switch here, and then our shuttle service, the West Chester Metro, comes in on this side, and then rolls into a metro platform here. So it comes off that other line, and then it stops right here. Okay, and then you get off and you transfer over here. By the way, the fare, all the fare stuff would be fully integrated. And also, this is a feeder line. This is a revenue generating line to our local authority, SEPTA. Talked about the pedestrian bridge. We don't really need to kind of go too much further than that. Another issue. Right now, volunteers presently keep our track in Class 1 condition, which is 15 miles per hour. That's not sufficient for the operation we're going to run. We need FRA Class 3, which allows operations up to 60 miles per hour. RDC and Nate's firm really take point on a lot of these things up front to get this, everything sorted with the capital expenditures, up front and managing those projects. We'll talk about approximately how much this would cost in the meantime, but maybe it doesn't work. Maybe it doesn't work, right? Maybe we do this and we have a lease and the ridership just doesn't show up and it's not there. I don't believe there's any realistic possibility of that, but that could happen in other circumstances in other locations in Pennsylvania, for example. The good news is then we pack up and go away. Whereas, if it does work and we do have the ridership and it's actual ridership, not a projection, our federal applications for funding, that's a real differentiator, for applying and saying, hey, we might have this much ridership, we're kind of projecting it, which is the traditional approach, versus, hey, here's our ridership. Let's get down to brass tacks here and let's get this thing sorted, is really what we're looking at. So if the demonstration is successful, if and when in this circumstance, I strongly believe, multi-year improvement work program kind of incrementally would continue to improve the tracks and the infrastructure in the area and offer more kind of permanent stations, all those sorts of things along the way. And we've thought about parking anyway. This is a neat thing, mostly as an aside, but this true grid, full permeability, stays in place, all that stuff. You can do ADA, the whole nine with it. So we're looking at this to avoid runoff issues. And a few of these next ones are really kind of a lot of the details of where the train set will be and the maintenance and all those sorts of things. And we have this for each of the stations. But so we've kind of mapped out what we need to do and who we need to work with to get this done. And I think this is an important slide. It looks super busy, but it's super true. And really this comes down to organization, and then also knowing what boxes you need to check along the way. It was invaluable to us in West Chester to have this restoration of rail service advisory committee that we set up in 2014. We had tremendous amount of applications, and we have these incredible folks, subject matter experts, attorneys, advocates, various folks across the board that have really helped us kind of organize this and bring this into a shovel-ready project. So those sorts of things, as a municipality, maybe if this is something that you're serious about, maybe that's a conversation you should be having with your local elected officials in order to get some kind of brain trust working behind the scenes to map out what you need to do to make this a reality. SEPTA could run this, could be the program manager, but let's be honest, they're not going to. So what we're anticipating is either like a TMAC, a Transportation Management Association of Chester County, or like a 501c or Transportation Authority being the carrier, and then they're technically the carrier, and then they manage the contracts and hire the operators and all that sort of thing. This is just to say that as a program manager for a demonstration, a new not for profit would pair with all these experienced contractors to operate and maintain the track, like I mentioned, the rolling stock. Contracting is actually the mechanism that's employed today by almost all U.S. rail systems, and that's the sort of thing that we run into. So, when SEPTA's great at looking in their own fishbowl, but they can't see outside their fishbowl. Okay, but in reality, temporal separation 6 minutes from their headquarters. In reality, the vast majority of the rest of the country is employing contracting in order to to operate and achieve these services. Less than a quarter of agencies actually operate or maintain their own trains. So it's just simply not necessary. And there's simply more than one way to skin a cat, as it were. So the majority, 78%, contract with their host railroad, okay, and then employ a private contractor in order to run these operations.
Jordan, I want to make sure we have time for a couple questions. Can we?
Yep, then that's it. So let's
Okay.
let's open it up to questions from there.
Okay, real quick, I think didn't you have a commute time chart last time we talked?
Yeah, we kind of trimmed the deck here, but long story short, from West Chester in the borough to Center City, Philadelphia, including the 5 minutes in between, we're in Philadelphia in under an hour, which from a competition standpoint is well below any of the other options available. I can send you that chart, but we just tried to trim it out for exactly this reason.
What was the time from West Chester to Wawa?
Nate, do you remember that off the top of your head?
It's not very, it's about 18 to 22 minutes.
Okay. And then Elaine asked, why don't you ask this question, Elaine? I'm not sure what you were getting at.
Sure. I didn't proofread it. Sorry about that. Just wondering, you're talking about we could do it as a demonstration and then prove it by actual ridership. But prior to that, you talked about for you to be able to run at 60 miles an hour, the rail has to be upgraded. So I was wondering, and it also sounded like the money to get the rail upgraded would depend on showing the demonstration. So, if you're going 15 miles an hour to Wawa versus 60 miles an hour to Wawa, just try to understand how the rail upgrade and all this is going to happen with the demonstration project, if that makes any sense, what I asked. The timing of upgrading the rail so you could go at the speed that, 60 miles.
Yeah, the catch 22 portion of it.
Yeah, just wondering.
Yeah, so I mean, there'd be an initial capital expenditure that would be for our line between 20 and 30 million is what we're looking at, and 80% covered by the feds. So we'd have to come up with a local match. Local could equal state, county, I mean, you name it, just not fed, of 20%. So our local bogey is like 4 to 6 million, the rest coming from the feds, in order to be 100% rated raw class 3, 60 mile per hour.
And that obviously precedes the demonstration project of. Correct. Okay. And can I ask one other, the issue about parking in West Chester or anywhere, you mentioned a station, but is there, you're real familiar with the location. Is there going to be a parking? Whenever I go by there, there's hardly any place to park there. Not that I would walk over there, but not everybody could do that. Is that going to be an issue? Even in the demonstration period of it be parking limited?
No, I mean, and again, for the demonstration purposes, we're not talking about decking any garages or any of those sorts of things. We did solve for a little bit over 100 new spots at that location. It's another one of the slides that we took out here. So there's parking proposed at all the stations, but initially it would be restricted by kind of minimal investment at that point. But once we prove the ridership, it'd be all part of the incremental improvements, and ultimately if we can prove ridership here, then we can prove the viability of through service as well, which is ultimately where we'd like to be. But we also have the option to buy these from Railroad Development Corp as well, so we can run this service permanently as well. But as of now, yeah, I mean, it's we're not really solving for long-term parking needs. but short-term ones we are.
Okay, well, thanks for your answer and thank you for putting all this together. It's
Jordan, I have a
I
question.
guarantee
Th-
there, I guarantee there'll be a bike rack, Elaine. I'll guarantee there'll be a bike rack just for you.
Yeah, and there will be,
then-
but there will be bike racks. So on the West Chester Metro itself, you'll be able to put a bike on there. FYI. Mhm.
Andrew asked about ticket costs. I think Jordan, you had talked about being in Region 4, the SEPTA thing, right?
Yeah, Nate, maybe you know more about, I mean, this is something for Tom Hickey, really, the fare integration, how all that works.
Yeah, the aspiration would be to have it integrated with SEPTA, so it'd be clear, one ticket all the way to Center City, and then, like a one zoner, for the shuttle itself. It'll be very nominal, competitive with any bus service. And, in most of these services in the US, the fare box doesn't really pay for all of the expense, for it not to be a burden on riders.
So will there be advertising opportunities on the train?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When you come out for the demo at Orbisonia, you'll see we have placards of everybody that visits are inside the car bodies, which are available, and we can also, with everybody's agreement, we can even do wrapping of particular promotions on portions of the outside of the car. So that would definitely be available.
Anybody else have a question? Raise your hand or come off mute.
I think Paul's got a question. Maybe that wasn't an intentional finger rise.
Are there any plans for, I know this is mostly talking like getting the media and Wawa and stuff. Would there be any for connecting West Chester to King of Prussia?
No, I mean, geographically, it doesn't work. I mean, that would really go through like the R5 line out that way. And I mean, the King of Prussia project is dead as of now. That's yeah, unfortunately that's the case. So unfortunately they spent $50 million on that. Could have paid for our CapEx twice on just what they spent on that already, but that's a waste. Geographically it doesn't really work that way.
So who's got the ball for this West Chester project proposal?
Sorry?
Who's got the ball? What are we waiting on for it to move forward?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing we need is SEPTA's goodwill. That's what we don't have. And I mean, the good news is that SEPTA is a public agency, so therefore it answers to the public. So the process we're currently in is stakeholder engagement. We've had, Nate and RDC have put in an application recently, the Department of Energy for a grant application. We have letters of support from U.S. Senator Bob Casey, all of our local folks, the universities. So essentially, we're in the process of creating an organization that can't be ignored, an organization where they can't say you're not a priority, because that organization will be represented by founding members, most likely to include a couple universities, a chamber, Penn Medicine. These are all different potential stakeholders that will be part of our initial nonprofit that will most likely, if necessary, proceed into a full authority. So we're building the groundswell and the support where we will tell SEPTA to cooperate or allow us to do this, because those are the two options. They can either cooperate with us and do this together in partnership, which would be our preference, or they're going to have to allow us to do it ourselves. So those are the two off ramps that SEPTA has, and we're in the process of helping them understand that, and then hopefully having the necessary engagement to get this done in the short term.
Are there any other communities represented by people on the call I'd like to talk about? Reading, Lancaster, Pittsburgh, that people on the call see as opportunities for something like this? I don't know, Jordan or Nate, have you looked at the line between Reading and Norristown? Would that be I know people have talked about that, turning that back into passenger service for a long time, but I don't know. I know it's a freight line, but I don't know if it's shareable.
Yeah, that one might be a little more of a lift because you mentioned the freight line. The NS operates on it, and that's their primary way into Philly. We interchange with the NS. We know them very, very well, and it might be a bigger lift. You know, most of our deployments we look at are distances of 10 to 30 miles, segments that are what we call a class 3 short line. That's a low density freight railway, who might have 1 train a day or 2 a week that we can move in with them to improve their track, to offer more value and make their lines more viable. And it's not as much competition with freight. Here in Allegheny County, we're looking at some deployments in the Pittsburgh area on very low density old freight lines that otherwise may no longer exist. It's another reason, another value of doing this is it preserves these corridors that once they're taken away, they'll never come back. And given what urgency we're facing, we can be part of that solution to put in zero emission transit to really benefit a lot of folks. Otherwise, the lines will end up going away.
All right, well, I guess that'll do it for today. Thank you very much, Jordan and Nate, for spending time with us, teaching us about this opportunity. I'll get this recording put up on the Sierra Club Pennsylvania YouTube channel, and I'll let you know when it's ready. I'm sure these guys would, if you come up with any further questions, send them through me and I'll pass them on.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for your
Really
time.
appreciate it.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you.